Hello, I'm Jagannath, and you're watching The Natural Farmer. Okay, so welcome to the Food Forest video. I'm going to take you through it step by step, what we've done. This video has been some months in the making because basically I didn't want to show you a bunch of like dirt, with some little tiny things planted. I want to show you some green things with some little tiny things planted. But in all seriousness, Food Forest is just what it sounds like. The British call it a forest garden. It's basically the same thing. And what it entails most of the time, permaculturists, we call it food forest. It usually means, in permaculture terms, a group of trees planted together, fruit-producing trees, food-producing trees, and there is usually included a type of water harvesting system to give the trees water security, okay? In addition to that, there's usually some type of chop and drop pioneer nitrogen fixing tree population planted with the food trees, if that makes sense. You've got production trees, but then you have support trees. And basically what we do is create what we call in permaculture fast carbon pathways, okay? That's a fancy way of saying get carbon in the soil, because when you get carbon in the soil, especially here with sandy soils, retains water much better. There's much better nutrient bank in the soil that the trees can draw from, and then they're happier and healthier, and it just, there's a lot that goes into it, carbon sequestering, and et cetera, et cetera. But all that is just to say that we select nitrogen fixing pioneer species trees. They're coppicing trees, which means you can cut them and put them down and cut them again and put them down over several year cycle, and they just keep regrowing. And so it's like mulching in place, okay? So we do that, and then we do that right next to our production trees, and then everything's happy because we're building soil and they're getting mulched, the production trees are getting mulched, and things just grow, and Mother Nature takes over and gives us her feedback at whether she likes what we did or not. So the Food Forest is up and running, but I'm going to narrate through the process that we've followed so far to get to the Food Forest. Okay, so I'm going to take you through that right now. Okay, so the most important thing I'm going to explain to you in this permaculture video is the fact that this is a demonstration farm for villages in India. And the demonstration of this food forest is basically to show farmers what to do, like one option that they could use to put otherwise undesirable pieces of land that gets flooded, put those pieces of land into production. Okay, this is the most important part of what I'm going to show you here, because the area that we chose for the food forest on this land normally floods throughout the monsoon. It's flooded right now. I'm kind of standing in water right now. And I have faced this throughout the entire development of this farm, because this is the last piece to get chosen. The people who live at the house chose the best pieces, best parcels all around the house, and I got the leftovers, okay? Which is fine, because for a demonstration site, it's best to work with the leftovers. If you're trying to show disenfranchised people who, they're not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, so they kind of get the leftovers themselves a lot. So if you can demonstrate to them, what do you do with the leftover piece of land? A piece of land that floods, a piece of land that's normally no good, that's got compacted soils, acidic soils because of the standing water. what can we do with this land? The answer we came up with is build 2 strips of food forest, okay? So I'll take you through the technique. What we did is we took contour, we measured contour with our water level, and we found that they're pretty straight. We chose the last frontier after our rice paddy, which is the edge. It's right before, it's when the water circulates through the rice paddy and it comes to these last 2 bunts, these last 2 trenches, just before it exits into the big pond, and then from the big pond it goes to the canals under the road and becomes salt water. Okay, so you want to catch the water before it leaves the land, and a great way to do it is with the food forest on the edge of the land. It's not the only way to do it. You know, you can run a food forest through the, Bill Mollison recommends that you run it through the longest contour of your piece of land, but we didn't have that option. So we went with this option, which is catch it at the last frontier before it leaves the land. Okay, so we measured that up, then we started digging. Started digging the trench because we operate from the principle that in order to build up, you dig down, especially when you have flooded land, okay? We don't import material, we don't take big trucks, we don't have a JCB, which is a backhoe. We don't do any of that. We do all hand digging, and we try to dig trenches to build mounds. And that's consistent throughout this entire piece of land. It economizes effort, it economizes money, energy, all these things. It's the smartest way, in my opinion, to raise the ground is to build a trench, okay? So we did that, and then after we were doing this a little bit, we got gifted quite a few coconut trunks. The people who managed the land came out and we found one hardwood, and we traded them a hardwood, nice piece of hardwood, for a bunch of coconut trunks, because the coconut, you can only use the bottom, 5 meters, I would say, of the coconut, and then it gets twisty at the top. They don't like to use that. So they donated all these coconut tops to us, the trunks. So we laid them out, we asked them to lay them out in a trench, and that's Hugelkultur. But we thought, we're in the tropics, Hugelkultur breaks down super fast, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna improve on Hugelkultur, and we're going to do biochar Hugelkultur, which I personally haven't seen. It probably exists out there, but we thought we kind of came up with the idea. It's hard to invent something in this, this profession. But whoever invented it, that's what we used, because biochar is guaranteed to stay in the soil long term. Hugelkultur in a tropical environment breaks down super fast. It's very, very fast because nutrient cycle is the fastest in tropics. So we thought, great, we're gonna do minimal effort, we're gonna lay it out, and we just burnt the logs. And as you can see here, we just burnt and burnt and burnt. We didn't burn for hours and hours, but we just charred the exterior of the trunks that we were given, because we just needed enough biochar stacked in there to mix this kind of broken down coconut fiber on the inside of the trunk with the biochar exterior. So we felt that that would be a pretty good mix. So, we burnt for a while, and then we poured water on it, as you can see, and got all the charred remains in there, and then we just kept digging. We kept digging our trench and mounding it up. So we mounded the entire bunts, the first bunt here, and then we continued the digging and mounded up the second bunt. So that was the kind of lion's share of the work out here. And I won't lie to you, it's a heck of a lot of work, all right? Especially when you don't have any machinery and you're just relying on manpower and volunteer manpower at that. So we don't have any paid workers out here, okay? So we mounded up the bunts, got the trenches in place, as a result. And we also took a level from back up by the house, and so we erred on the side of making these bunts too high. Because once you're committed to it and you start to plant trees, then you're committed to your height. Okay, so we think we erred on the side of going too high. We'll find out. So far so good, and we're halfway through the monsoon right now. But then what we did is we planted up trees. So a guy, Chidanan, friend of mine, who's done some work out here, he did all the kind of tree nursery ahead of time, and we decided that we were going to put, of course, banana and papaya. We were donated a few Rudraksha trees, which are holy trees here in India. We were donated some moringa, And then we went with the fruit trees of a local fruit called chiku, which is a brown, fuzzy kind of sweet fruit. We went with a bunch of pomegranate. We've got, of course, mango. Then we've got cashew, and we put jackfruit, and then a couple of guava. And then I think that's the majority of the fruit trees. We repeated the cashew and repeated the mango, of course, because everybody, likes those trees. We only do have the one jackfruit. And then we stacked our system with the nitrogen fixing pioneer species, the chop and drop. And so we've got Sesabania, we've got Argliricidia, and then we've got Leucaena. So we went ahead and stacked all of these into our system, and then we mulched them, lightly mulched them, gave them a little bit of water, because they are, natural farming usually says don't water, but in terms of planting fruit trees in the beginning, I do follow some watering techniques there, okay? So basically we had a bunch of saplings planted up on kind of a steep mound, and it was brown. So it's basically brown with saplings, okay? And then I went through and did a technique. It's not a seed ball technique, but it's basically like creating clay, a mixture of water, some powdered clay that we have here, and then some seeds, some bean seeds, okay? So beans themselves. So what I had to did is I went ahead and spread the beans out over the entire length of the bunts, because when you leave things out in the open like that, too much exposed to the elements, it just dries everything out. And the beans are nitrogen fixers. So the beans help build soil too, plus you get a production from the beans. So I went ahead and just spread all the beans out over the bunts and got everything covered. And then slowly the beans started to grow and the trees started to grow. Then we planted the banana, because the banana were not in the original planting. We got a bunch of bananas donated. So we went ahead and did the banana circles, got those planted up, and then the rain started to come because we timed it right. I did have to water a bit because the timing of the human help sometimes doesn't correspond with the timing of nature. Okay, so this is a very important point because I've run into this a few times. I've gone with the timing of when the people were going to be here, and it's too early. And so I recommend you don't do that whenever possible. If you can coordinate it, people and rainfall, coordinate it like that, because otherwise you're going to be doing some watering. And that was the case with us. And like I say, we've had a really very strange and dry, difficult monsoon this year. So just a word of caution there. So I went ahead and watered where it was necessary. Like I say, we mulched it. Everything grew up. And this is where we're at now, so I'll take you through the food forest where we are now. Okay, so this is where we are now. This is what we've got. It's basically food forest is planted up here, right? And there's my tripod over there, and here's the second bunt. So we got the two bunts. The bunts have been harvesting water very well. Here's the rice paddy. It's got a lot of weeds in it, but it's natural rice. It's okay, sun's going down. And then water's harvested there, and then behind this second is the big pond over there you can kind of see in the background. But I will try to just kind of take you through here. Let me start over here. Yeah, here's a jackfruit. We got one jackfruit right there. Basically what we did is we marked with these little pieces of cloth on a stake of bamboo all the places where we've got production trees. I've got the banana pit here. Banana pits have worked out pretty well. What have I got here? Oh, a little tiny papaya. Somebody put a stake next to this baby papaya you can see right here. We'll see if it makes it. The papaya tend to get lost. Unless they're bigger, they tend to get lost in the beans a little bit. So we're gonna probably have to make a little papaya nursery and then transplant a few of them, or just clear out a big space here from the beans. But here's a Rudraksha tree. This is the holy tree. This is actually a Rudraksha bead that I have on my necklace. It's a holy tree here in India, said to hold the subtle vibrations of meditation and sacred energy, basically. Another banana circle. I'll step over here. It gets a little bit hard to navigate this after a while because you got so much stuff. But here's another mango with our, these beans. These are climber beans. Oh, here I've got a little pomegranate growing right here. And I do come out here. This is zone 3 for us in terms of permaculture, which for those of you not familiar with permaculture, the larger the number of the zone, the further away it is from your house or from your center, from your workshop, whatever you consider to be the center of your design. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So this is zone 3. So this gets the least amount of visits per week or per month or per year, if you will. And so I come out and I do a little survey, I untie some beans and make sure nothing's gotten trampled. If it has, then replant it perhaps, because there is a little bit of that goes on in this process. But it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. And that's the whole idea with a forest garden or a food forest. In the beginning, it might, just to get everything up into a safety level. And in fact, our neighbor has these goats over here, as you can see, and our little fishnet fence that we've had to create, they got around the side of it and 2 goats were eating a couple of our trees. So we had to get them off there. That's pretty common around here. But once things get to a level of maturity where they're nice and strong, then you don't have to check in on it that much. But in the beginning, it takes a little bit of maintenance, and that's just pretty normal for this process. So that's this bunt. I'll take you over to the other bunt. But actually, I've got right here, this is a Neem. It's a Neem tree, just got planted. So I'll probably put a little bit more mulch around here. I've just created a little donut to hold the water. It's another pomegranate here, and we'll go across to the other bunt, this other side here. So this is actually probably a good time to explain that, like back over here. So this is the first bunt. So basically what happens is water flows across the rice paddy, falls into the first trench, the trench of the first bunt over on this side. Then it fills up on the far side, spills over into this trench, fills up this entire trench. And can you see how it gets more shallow here and then more shallow? And it's just a gentle spillway through this part. So it'll fill. It'll come to this, which is acting like a little gentle spillway. It'll roll over into this ditch here, which is part of our main ditch out there. And then from this ditch, it goes to our big pond. So this ditch carries out through these grasses and everything. We've got a lot of scum on the pond right now. I think we need to put a bubbler or something, because it's an unhealthy amount of scum on the pond right now. But basically that goes to that big pond and carries it out to the sea. So I'll show you the second bunt here. It's basically the same type of setup where we've got our banana circle. Here's a banana circle, and there's another pomegranate. And then this is a soursop, which I don't know the translation for this. It's like this sour kind of purpley fruit. It's quite popular around here amongst the locals. Here's a moringa, sesbania here, nitrogen fixing chop and drop tree, a pit, another banana pit, and then another rudraksha. We got these 2 paired rudrakshas, banana, many other things just back up here. So I mean, more or less you get the idea. You get your production trees, then you get your support trees, okay? In the beginning, the support trees, support bushes, you cannot overstack too much of those. As long as you're not crowding out what you've got, you're gonna want those, because the more of those you have to chop and drop, then you can build fast carbon pathways. And some people recommend, like, for every 100 fruit trees, you've got, 1,000 of the chop and drop trees in the beginning, or beans. You've got like 10 times as many and then 10 times as many as that. We don't adhere to that as much here because this is really just kind of a first time experiment, and a lot of the people we work with can't get those quantities. But we're up and running. We're quite happy with what we've got. I mean, you can see we've got a lot of vegetation. We do chop some of this and put it down. So, we're up and we're on our way. And so we'll keep you up to date on how this goes and kind of take it one step at a time. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how to do this. Okay, so that's it, how to make a food forest. I hope it's helpful. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And thanks again for tuning in, and we hope to see you again real soon.